What's going on, everybody? It's Dr. Homebrew. We are back here with another pair of beers to drink on this lovely show, but only one guest. We have two beers. I think that they're technically, well, they're sour beers, but I guess there's wine grape. So this is a Malbec juice one and then Sauvignon Blanc juice with another. And then the homebrewer, Nariah, is on the line here to take us through each of these beers, what he did, and then, we can judge it and do the whole thing. We'll do a whole shtick, but instead of having two people, you guys, we have one. It's crazy. It's weird. But, it's 2022. We gotta change things up. I don't know what's going on. Before we get to Nariah, though, I do want to thank our sponsor, 5 Star Chemicals. You go to 5starchemicals.com, learn about the best way to clean and sanitize your home brewing equipment, which is, of course, using Star San and PBW, but reverse it. Mm-hmm. PBW first, Star San second, and that's what it's all about, man. It's like the hokey pokey, kids. It's the hokey pokey of cleaning your. I don't know.
Well, and then you have to rinse
put
after
your
that.
PBW in, you take your PBW out, you put your Star San in, and you shake it all about.
That's right.
Remember when people
Pretty much what you do.
They used to sanitize with bleach, and then there was a third step. You have to rinse it to get all the bleach out. Otherwise, you'll get these.
I missed that phase. I was iodophore.
You get these awful chlorophenolics in your beer that just like destroy it with a tiny amount.
You desanitize everything after you've sanitized it by taking water and rinsing it. It's like, yeah, thanks. That's great. No, don't do that. Don't be using iodophore and bleach and all that nonsense.
Well, who would have thought?
Especially not bleach.
There's there's conspiracy theorists out there who drink bleach to cure them of COVID. So there's that. So we're back. We're full circle, sort of, guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what we're doing.
It's not bleach. It's industrial strength chlorine dioxide. Bleach is only what the non-believers say to get you to not drink it and take the enema. It's chlorine dioxide, JP.
That's right. There you go. Nariah, what's going on, man?
Not a whole lot. Over here on the East Coast waiting out a storm.
Oh, damn.
Learning about bleach.
Now he has to listen to us. He already wants to take off.
Yeah, I was like looking over, I was like, what's going on? We're on Zoom, of course, and it's like Nariah just already looks like over our shit. It's like
no, not at all.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's great.
And I probably should give a public service announcement. That was comedy. Please do not drink bleach or insert it in your anus or any other part of your body. Don't Brian, touch it. Just don't
explain that it's comedy. It's not.
Put it in the washing machine.
Yeah,
that's it.
We live in 2021 where irony is dead and maybe comedy is too. I don't know.
Well, it's actually 2022.
Yeah, you might be living in 2021.
Oh shit! Are we in 22 or is that just what they want us to think?
Yeah. All right, Nariah, tell me what's up with these beers, man. I got 2 fruit lambics. What's the base beer on these?
It's like a Belgian blonde.
Okay. Belgian blonde, and then you got your yeast here. We'll talk about that, and then one is aged on Malbec juice, and the other on Sauvignon Blanc juice. Do you have access to a winery, or how did you handle the juice, or how did you acquire the juice?
So it came from a wine kit.
Okay.
So I had a buddy
cool.
that worked at a brew your own winery.
Okay.
And so me and him collaborated on this, and he kind of guided me to what should we use for a white? What should we use for a red? How much do you think?
That's really cool.
I like it. That's neat. Okay. Fellas, which one are we going to open first?
Let's do the Sauv Blanc first. That makes sense to me.
Sure. All right, Nariah. So have you done a sour beer before?
So this is my second sour.
Wow.
Since then, I have done quite a few, actually. So
I just opened the lid. I'm about a foot away, and I just got a nice plume of aromatic. It smells great. Okay, and then is this the first time you've messed around with adding grape must in there, grape juice?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I would be scared. That's one of the reasons I haven't done sour beers before, because it's a lot of work. And then I would be like, I think I'm just going to screw it up. I would be pissed if I sat on this beer for 18 months or a year or whatever. and it just was like it's all for nothing. So kudos to you for diving right in and just kind of trying some funky stuff right off the bat.
I like a challenge. If I have to dump it, I have to dump it. I mean, it's sad, but I mean, what can you do?
Yeah, you can cry and never do it again, like me.
Uh,
All right, Cooper, why don't you start us off, huh?
All right, let's do this one here. So I just poured it, and it kind of it poured a little head at first, but it settled down pretty quickly there. Had a moderate hiss upon opening. Yeah, so just right away up front, I get this pleasant sweet tart, like sour note, with pleasant grapey quality, kind of a tart and citrus like grape in there. No hops noted. Obviously, it shouldn't be a really hopped beer. There is a Brettanomyces funk present at I would say a medium high level, but it's not the goaty barnyardy thing too much. It's more like a hay, straw, a little bit of earthiness. The malt is subdued and kind of hidden behind those sour qualities, generally neutral. But just smelling it is kind of a mouth watering. It makes you salivate just to smell the beer. So that's always a good thing. It has a very, I would say, Cantillon like nose. The Cantillon Vigneron is one that they make with Muscat grapes. And man, that is a great beer to aspire to come anywhere close to. And this beer to me smells a lot like that. What I remember it smelling like when I had it, 10 years ago, the last time probably. But, I've had other Cantillons since, and a lot of them have that kind of nice balance between the tart impression and the funk and just their kind of house character for their beers. I don't know if that was something you were going for there or not, but it brings up conjures up pleasant memories for me anyway. So appearance wise, it's a slightly hazy golden kind of honey like color. Sudden white head just crests and falls quickly, like I said. Mostly larger bubbles. But as I'm looking at the beer, these pinpoint bubbles keep continuously rising up in the center of the glass as it sits. I was just looking at it, there's always a little a rise of little pinpoint bubbles. So it is fairly well carbonated to keep that up for as long as I was sipping on it and enjoying it last night when I first judged this one. So yeah, I did take a point off for just appearance wise for kind of the head should stick around if it is a carbonated version of a lambic, and it is. And by the way, you should probably declare in the style guidelines. It does mention that you should declare the level of carbonation, because some of them won't be carbonated and others. It'll just help the judge understand it better. I'm getting around that fine here. It seems like it's definitely a carbonated version, so that's fine. Anyway, where was I at? In the flavor, moderately sour, sweet tart-like character up front. The malt is low, mostly neutral, but moderately kind of just generically bread-like. I think the grapes come through nicely in there. There's a definite nice white grape taste in there to my palate. It's in balance with the beer. The beer is not overly excessively tart and sharp and bitingly sour. It's got a nice kind of medium low level of sourness, tartness. But there's a semi-dry finish that keeps it from seeming too sweet and not sour enough. So that kind of helps it too, I think. And the funk definitely also comes in and says, hey, here's a good, sour. And you still get the grape, the funk, and the sourness kind of in tandem. And I really like that. So it's not a sharp, like biting sour at all. But all these elements kind of play nicely together. There's no hops, obviously. You shouldn't have that. In the aftertaste, there's kind of a sweet, tart, funky aftertaste continuing. There's no obvious wood in here. I'm not getting any real bitterness from hops or anything like that. So, I mean, it's hops kind of counteract what you want to do with sours anyway. So, yeah, the balance here is generally between the sour and the flavor of the grapes here, which is nice, and the funk. So it's all coming across nicely. I gave it a 16 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel wise, it's medium light bodied with I guess I could say a medium low carbonation. There's no obvious warmth. It's kind of, I don't know if I had to guess where it's at. It's a middle of the road, 5 or 6% sour, I would guess. Maybe it's stronger and it's just teasing me, but I don't know. No real astringency or anything like that. Although the Brett gives a slight kind of leathery feel on the tongue. It is slightly puckeringly tart, but it's not excessive. So that's nice to me. 4 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Overall impression is just a very pleasantly balanced fruit lambic with all the elements coming together to form a very nicely combined presentation. Just like to me, I like the balance of this beer. I get enough of that grape. I mean, I might like a little bit more of it, but it's coming through in a good way where you taste everything. And you could push it a little more sour too, but the fruit and the base beer are both well done and harmonious. I would recommend you could clear up the beer a bit to get a little better score. I mean, generally a little bit of haze is admissible. It's not excessive, but it does, it's not super easy to see through it. And, a little bit of haze can be expected, but you can maybe add some, if it's coming from the fruit, you could use some pectinase to knock out that the fruit haze that could be in there. But other clarifying agents will help you clear it up a little bit. I mean, it's not always, again, expected to be brilliantly clear, but a little better clarity would help. See if the head could also be improved to get that head stand up a little better. It tastes like it's kind of on the younger side. It does, it's nice because with a fruit lambic, you don't want to, you always want to age sours, of course, but with a fruit lambic, you don't want to age it so much that the fruit just goes away. This is still in a nice place. That's on the younger side. I understand from the label that it's a blended sour with some older and some newer sours. So your blending was done nicely. It's just a very good work on the beer. I landed at a 42 on this one, so I just really enjoyed the balance of it myself, and I just found myself wanting another sip, and it's very good. I think that maybe I should be a little bit lower with the clarity and stuff like that, but it's just, and the head falling flat, but it's not that big of a deal to me. Appearance again is just 3 points, so I don't know. That's where I'm at, and appreciate you sending it. Thank you.
What was your score, Brian? Sorry.
I landed at a 42.
All right. Nice, respectable 42. All right, Brian Shar.
All right. So, Nariah, I have to ask my usual question. Are you in a homebrew club?
I am not.
Well, you're in like a club of 2 with you and your winery friend.
Well,
in
I'm
a
not
sense.
in a club, but what I do is I brew with friends,
I was kind of joking. So sorry. Of course you have friends, man. I don't mean to imply you don't have any friends or you don't have any. So
oh, I didn't hear that. Wow, man. Thanks.
So I wasn't going to imply that you don't have, I just was as if you and your buddy could be like a club.
Yeah, there you go. All
so
right.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to change my scores on the fly because Cooper and I talked about this beer before the show, and you were kind enough to send us those big old 22-ounce bombers of sour. And mine, both of these have been sitting out on my kitchen counter for about 2-3 hours. And it's about 67, 66 in my house. So it's not like a refrigerator, but it's not like super hot. But it's warmed up. And my impression has changed more favorably of this since it's warmed up. So initially, my impression, I'll just kind of read my initial what I had written. Aroma starts off with a medium lactic / funky bread aromas. It's interesting, when the head settled, I got less of the funk and the lactic, and got a little more fruitiness, got a little of Sauvignon Blanc, but not very much. I didn't get the characteristic grassiness, right? Because Sauvignon Blanc is its defining characteristic is the grassy flavor and aroma. I didn't
herbal.
Get it. Yeah, herbal, grassy, whatever you want to characterize that as. But I didn't get any THP, that Cheerios type of aroma and flavor people always talk about with sour beer. No off aromas, off for sour beer. But I scored it initially 8 out of 12 because I liked it as a sour beer, but I wasn't getting the Sauvignon Blanc ingredient, right? Because typically when you declare an ingredient, you want it to be something you can taste and smell. But as it's warmed up, I definitely get that kind of grassy Sauvignon Blanc character at kind of a low to medium low level. Yeah, it's definitely there. And I think because it's kind of subtle, and we'll talk about the other one later, the Sauvignon Blanc, it's a white grape. It's, typically white grapes aren't as tannic. The skins aren't, they're tannic, but they're not maybe as tannic or as pronounced as a red wine grape is. And I kind of felt like the Sauvignon Blanc had gotten lost in the sourness. But as it's warmed, I'm definitely noticing that it's there. So I'm going to come up a couple of points to a 10 out of 12 on that. This is the kind, I've talked about this before, this is the kind of live judging action you can only find on Dr. Homebrew.
Yeah, you lucky people, you.
I gave it an 11 on the aroma.
Yeah.
I really liked the aroma a lot.
Yeah, the aroma is fantastic. And again, the only reason I'd given it a lower score, Brian and I talked about this a little bit before the show, and none of it had to do with my subjective liking of the beer, because I think it's fantastic from a subjective standpoint. It was more from a judging standpoint of how, if you're going to have a fruit lambic, the fruit has to be noticeable in some manner. And I felt like it had kind of gotten lost. But again, as it warmed up, like a lot of things that are colder beverages, when they warm up, the subtleties tend to come out. Mm-hmm. And the Sauvignon Blanc is a little more subtle. Appearance 3 out of 3, colors pale gold, heads medium and persistent, very clear. Flavor, I'm going to come up to 15 because same type of thing. I wasn't getting. I initially was a 14. I wasn't getting the Sauvignon Blanc character before. I definitely get it now, the grassiness, but I'm also picking up like a medium low diacetyl, like a real buttery character, which, and I can whip out the guidelines quick on this, Brian, but I'm not sure that even in a lambic, you're supposed to be getting diacetyl. It might be okay at a low level, and it might be okay at the level that it is. And it might just be I had a weird sip of that.
Oh, that warmed up a lot too. So you're sipping a lot warmer version than I am.
That's very true.
Back down. So I judged mine last night, and I recapped it. So the one I'm tasting today is probably a little less carbonated, but I recapped it immediately after pouring last night. And I brought my bottle capper in, and I put a fresh cap on it and saved it as best I could. And it's holding up pretty well. Yeah. But mine is probably a lot colder than yours right now.
But yeah, there's some low diacetyl. I get a little bit of that slickness on the tongue. But I'm definitely getting that, again, the grassiness of the Sauvignon Blanc. Initially the flavor is lactic and fruity with kind of a low funk. An acid becomes more intense and dominates by mid palate. Toward the finish is when you start getting some of that. You get some of that grassiness and that Sauvignon Blanc at the beginning, and then after mid palate, it tends to come. To me, it comes back. Then you have a long finish that's fairly balanced, but it is balanced a little toward the sour. It's well attenuated, no noticeable hop flavor. It's like I didn't mention, there's no hop aroma, but this is not a beer you're going to have hop aroma or hop flavor. I didn't get THP in the flavor either. And I remember trying really hard because I didn't want to be embarrassed, like, oh, I love this beer, and I'm ignoring the THP. I tried, I was sucking the air in while I was drinking this and did not taste any of those, that Cheerios character. So I think this is a 15 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel, body's medium, carbonation's medium. It's not warming. Creamy and astringent don't really apply to sour beer as far as I could tell. So 5 out of 5. I'm going to give this an overall impression. I'm going to come up to 8, and that gives me a score of 13, 28, 33, 41.
Wow.
I really like this beer. I think it's excellent beer technically. I love the creativity of adding the Sauvignon Blanc grapes. My first, when I was first writing this initial sort of overall impression, I was like, well, yeah, I like this beer. I'm not getting the grassiness, but I am getting the grassiness as it warms up. So I am getting that character. And it is always harder when you're adding white wine grapes to anything than with red wine grapes, because the red wine grapes tend to have a flavor that's just so much stronger and more dominant. I think they're more tannic. There's more opportunity to say, hey, look, here's a red wine. Here's red grapes. And white grapes don't always have that. But I think it's extremely well done. I'm really pleased to have had this, and I think I'll probably be finishing this 22 ouncer tonight. It's only about 9 o'clock, right, guys? I can probably finish this bomber and the other bomber by bedtime, right?
Sure.
And not pass out in the meantime. I can do that.
Yeah.
So, I'm not seeing anything in the guidelines about diacetyl. So there's no mention either way of it in the straight lambic or the fruit lambic. So
so it's not really a thing that's.
I would say it shouldn't be there if it's not really mentioned as being allowable, but I'm not getting it myself, so it probably warmed up quite a lot. But
just to throw my 2 cents in the ring, I love this beer. This beer is very, very good. I mean, this is like you would go to like the Rare Barrel and you would buy some of this and you would be severely pleased.
You would pay $45 a bottle for the 375. And,
but you know what I mean? Like this is what I would expect from a commercial blendery. This is not what I would consider like a homebrew thing. So whatever you're doing, don't stop, keep doing it.
Make this beer.
This is if I don't know if you're a competition head at all, but this is 100% competition leading stuff. This
is potentially a best of show beer.
It's great. It's
and
phenomenal.
Listeners, you should come to one of our houses and stab us until we give you any remaining bits from this bottle right now.
Yeah.
So
drinking it, I think Shar, you had some valid points. Like the Sauvignon Blanc, I think that grape is a very delicate grape to show through a sort of, I think I'm okay to say, is sort of an aggressively sour beer. I think like Muscat grapes is what you traditionally sort of see, especially in like as an example in the fruited, categories of a wine grape. I think it lends a very cool flavor, but it does sort of get lost. It does feel like the beer is maybe young, and I do want to talk about that, of course. There's a slight slickness, thickness, almost like the end of ropiness, like the almost end of snottiness, maybe. So maybe the beer's not ready yet. I don't know.
That's a good point, and that could be where the diacetyl is coming from. Is that very end of the beer being quote sick unquote, like was it Peter Buchart talks about? Yeah,
we'll see. I thought it was pretty aggressive too. So I think, but I've had fresh sour beers that are this level, so it's not anything out of the ordinary. The beer dries on my tongue, it sort of gets like grapefruit pithy kind of thing, which it all works well. I wish I tasted more of the grape, but knowing what those grapes taste like, I get it. It's there. You sort of have to search for it. but I think the amount of juice is fine. I think changing up. I'm excited to taste the Malbec juice as well. I think it's really cool. I think you did a good job, man. So let's just get the first question right out of the way, Nariah, is do you have any more? No, I'm kidding. How old
we're not kidding. Do you have any more?
How old is this beer?
You want to take a guess?
Well, I think it's been in the bottle. I think it's just on the backside of being sick. So I think it's I think it's rare. I would in 4 months in the bottle.
I'm gonna guess 9 months.
I'll go in the middle, 6 months.
Okay.
So this was brewed in 2018.
I win. I'm the oldest, so I win.
That's right.
Well, one was the young beer that was blended in, brewed.
That was very young. So I actually have to check my notes for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 1 second. It's actually on my phone, so you might lose me visually for a second.
That's all right. That's all right. It's cool. So this
No worries.
this was brewed in 2018, and then how long did it go through its process before you blended it through? Or will we find out? I don't know. It's hard to know what order to like to take all these things. So yeah.
So this was bottled in 2020.
Okay. Wow.
And
okay.
January of 2020.
Okay.
So a couple years old.
It doesn't taste like it.
Well,
I mean, it's mature. The flavors are mature, but some of them aren't.
The young part of it
Yeah.
Was only about 4 months old when I blended it in.
Well, I think your blending technique or palate or instinct is right on, because it doesn't taste like it doesn't taste that old of beer. It tastes fresher than it is. It's bright. It's spirited. There's a lot going on in it as well, and it's sort of aggressive, but not aggressively sour. But there's still an aggressive beer flavor to it. So I think what you're doing, I think your instincts are pretty spot on.
So you blended this and bottled the blend when?
In January of 2020.
Okay.
Because that was our question, was how long has it been in the
right.
bottle? The bottle.
Yeah.
So that's the blend has been in the bottle for 2 years. So there's not any issue of like a recent oxygen exposure or anything like that. The oxygen's all been cleaned up by now. It's really interesting. And I'm also wondering if I'm really getting diacetyl or if I'm getting something else. But I know you talked about like a slickness, JP, and I think I'm not wrong. I think it's there.
Mm-hmm.
But as Cooper pointed out, it's not an off flavor for this beer. It's not a desired flavor potentially, but it's not an off flavor.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
the problem with a show like this is that we're trying to pick beers apart, which is the point of the show. So it's not like it's not like it's just me on a random Thursday where it's like, oh, I'm going to be negative about this beer. Because like I can maybe sort of get like a Cheerio THP thing if I'm really trying, if I'm hunting for it, but I sort of don't care. It's just one of those beers that like the sum of its parts sort of outweigh the maybe there's a thing here, let's investigate by drinking more. Maybe like if we're having to look this hard at some of these flaws, I'm gonna guess that they're just not there, or they're at levels where it's like, who gives a shit?
Yeah, I mean, if there was PDO getting loose in this beer, and you'd have some ropiness going on, like visibly. It's hazy, but it's
that's very true.
You would see the ropiness and see more problems, and the diacetyl will probably be a lot stronger, and the bottles would have problems, maybe too. But you'd see a little ring or something.
That's a good point. We pour this out, and like, why is there snot in my glass?
Yeah, it seems like it was fully aged and nicely blended with a proper treatment when it was bottled. So yeah, no problems there.
The last pure thing to come out of January 2020. Yeah, this is good. I sort of don't really know where to go with it. So why don't I open up to you, Nariah? What do you want to ask me, but also maybe the Bryans too.
Did we talk about the recipe yet?
No, let's do the recipe.
Yeah.
Well, so these two beers were brewed on the same day, and they went through the same exact thing.
Interesting.
So I don't know if you want to dive into the next one yet or not, but what do you think about the category? Do you think that this, to you is a lambic? I mean, you guys scored it pretty high, so
Yeah.
I would assume that you would.
Let's wait on the recipe. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
it does taste like a fruit lambic to me. It's got all those lambic-y kind of characters to it. It's there.
I agree.
Agreed. I mean, Cooper and I were making the comparison to Cantillon earlier, not to like stroke your ego, but that's just like we were talking about how this is not dissimilar to Cantillon that we've had, and that's like an iconic sour brand.
Yeah.
Right.
Lambic. Yeah.
So iconic lambic. That's the iconic lambic. So I think the category is exactly right.
I think so too. I looked it up too because I'm like, fruit beer. I don't know. Would you put wine? But yeah, I mean, it's yes, you would. So that was the only question I had.
Yeah, I was a little weird too. Like, okay, we don't get many fruit lambics on the show, so it's just like not something we have to face on a day-to-day basis. Sadly.
It's my first one as a Dr. Homebrew.
So let's pour the Malbec and
well, let's take a quick break. We got to do that first.
Yes.
Do we have any
Okay.
other questions or anything about this beer? Maybe we hold everything to the end.
we'll do a compare
So
and
the
contrast
same, yeah.
at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on, everybody. We'll be right back. This is Dr. Homebrew. We have another sour beer to get to and more praises to heap upon Nariah. So hold on, everyone. We'll be right back. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. We are back with Nariah and his fruited lambic, category 23F. All right, Nariah. So we were talking earlier. This is just like a standard blonde ale, but this one, instead of Sauv Blanc, we have Malbec juice.
Yes.
So why the Malbec? Why it's not really like a style that you even see. I think Malbecs are usually for blend, like Zinfandel blends. I don't know. My winemaking is sort of not really up to snuff. But how come Malbec juice?
Well, I left it up to my friend Tyler Peck to kind of guide us in the right direction on, what's the best wine to use. They were supposed to be sort of sangria sour like, and he knew more about wine than me, so I kind of let him, take the wheel on that one.
Some of our local wineries make a Malbec wine, and it's some of my favorite, honestly, too. It's got like a kind of a plum-like character and a little tart currant, kind of a savory bitterness to it. But yeah, it's the wineries that do the French style, Bordeaux style wines. Sometimes you can get a really good Malbec, and one of my local wineries here, it's called Cuda Ridge in Livermore. They do a nice one.
This one is a lot more fizzy. The bubbles, the head is super big, and the bubbles are super tight. It's crazy, and it's loud too. I can hear it through my headphones. All right, Shar, why don't you go first with this one here?
All right, thank you. So yeah, I definitely got a hiss when I opened this one. Aroma starts off with a sort of a medium level of Malbec grape aroma. And we're just talking about Malbec. Yeah, it's a big Australian wine. I'm not sure we always get the best examples shipped to the U.S., just like I'm not always sure we get the best examples of French wine gets shipped here. But having said that, I feel like I have a pretty good idea what it smells like, tastes like. Why did I go off on that diversion? Maybe I'm a little bit tipsy. It's the second half of the second show. I just maybe it. And here's the thing, and there's a beer. Low lactic acid, low Brett funk. Not getting THP in the aroma at all. No hop aroma. Which is okay. It's fruity and inviting. Gave it 10 out of 12. Appearance 3 out of 3. It's got a red wine like color, but it's certainly not as dark as just a Malbec. It's very clear, medium head settles. The head of mine settled pretty quickly. Yours is very heroic, JP. just on the Zoom camera. It's really tall and it's very persistent, and mine was not like that. So
No, it went away.
That's definitely okay.
Could be my glass.
That may be a bottle variation thing also. And again, this I've had this sit out for 3 hours, and frankly, at this point, I don't recall how big the head was when I first poured it 3 hours ago. But flavor. So appearance, I give it 3 out of 3. Flavor. Initially, the flavor is sort of a medium Malbec grape with low lactic. The acidity rises in mid palate to balance. Get a low Brett funk. In the finish, it's long and it's pretty well balanced between the acid and the Malbec. Well attenuated, no THP. And what's interesting to me was I think that the flavor is more rounded. And I'm trying to tell, I'm sure it's the difference between the red and the white and the stronger flavor of the Malbec versus the more subtle flavor of the Sauvignon Blanc. Both red and white wine will have tannin in the grape skins and in the seeds. Red wine typically has more. I'm trying to tell if I'm getting more tannin. I think maybe I am getting a slight amount more tannin.
I think you are getting more tannin.
But it's really hard to differentiate between the tannin and the acid. You know what I'm saying? But I think the tannin does kind of rein the acid in a little bit. This is more of a rounded, less acidic flavor than the previous one. So it's 15 out of 20. Mouthfeel 5 out of 5. Body's medium. Carbonation's medium. It's not warming, creamy, or astringent. I ended up landing on the same score for this as the other one, doing my modification on the fly. 41 out of 50. Overall impression was an 8. Really like this beer. This is a much stronger aroma and flavor grape, the Malbec, than the Sauvignon Blanc, and it definitely makes its presence known. It's definitely more rounded, but it's still definitely sour when tasting it. Initially when Brian and I talked before the show, my opinion was that the Sauvignon Blanc was a better sour, and this was a better fruit beer. But I think if I were to go back, I would probably tack an extra point onto the Sauvignon Blanc one in competition, and probably have that one probably match Cooper's opinion. Not that I want to telegraph that. JP, cut that out. Where I said telegraphing Cooper's opinion. But I like them both a hell of a lot. I mean, they're both 40 plus point beers. This is a 41 point fruit lambic. So not to poo-poo this beer at all. I mean, this beer is excellent. But I think that when that Sauvignon Blanc one is warm and you really get the character of the grapes, I think that one really stands out. And I'm also kind of wondering if what I thought was diacetyl is maybe a manifestation of the grape character in some way, undergoing this sour fermentation. I don't know, something I thought about during the break. But really well done. I thank you for who has shared 2 40-point beers with us in one show recently. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing this.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right, I'm
homework the last minute. He's the kid who sits in the hallway waiting for the teacher while he's finishing his homework.
I am again tasting the beer after one night of aging in my refrigerator, having been recapped and carefully, gently transported there. But yeah, now, this one's horrible. It's a 13-point beer. We're going to take away your brewing credentials, and
that's right. I'm going to call the agency.
No.
So yeah, and the nose on this one, I get a pleasant muted tart and fruity notes with a big kind of fruit juicy grapey aspect, red grape like. I get berry, currant, jam, generic jam, I guess you could call it. Yeah, like berry jam maybe.
Safeway
Grape jam.
signature generic berry jam.
Concord grape jam. No, no Concord aspects here. No hops, low muted malt buried again. Even further, I guess. There's a slight funkiness here only, kind of a light straw-like component. It is cleanly tart in the nose. No DMS. I'm not getting any diacetyl here either. And this one's, if at a pretty good judging temperature, it's not warm, but it's not ice cold at all. Appearance wise, it's a really pretty kind of reddish purple, ambery color with moderate haze, a bit tough to see through. Really looks like a glass of juice. You could look at this. Here's have some grape juice. It looks like grape juice. Again, had that kind of crackly head of large pinkish white bubbles this time that faded fairly soon after pouring. So I just took a point off for the head fading really quickly, and a little bit for the haziness, which is forgivable in a sour, but could be cleared up. Flavor wise, it's very grapey up front with these juicy kind of red grape plum like overtones, rich, cassis, like the dark currant, a little bit of kind of blackberry quality to it for sure. A little bit of earthiness. There's some tannin going on. Lambic tart quality is lower. I guess it's not super low, but it seems less tart than the other one. And only a faint bit of the Brett comes through at this with this blend. Still the fruit in it is very fresh and pleasant tasting. It's just big. There's a lot of fruit in this one, and it's very more obviously tasteable. The balance strongly to the fruit, finishes semi-sweet, and the malt is low, backgroundy, which you're not obviously going to get a lot of different malt characters in a lambic sour. The fruit lingers into the aftertaste. There's a tart edge to that, but like the tart edge that you would get from a fruit juice, not like from a super sour lambic
cranberry juice kind of tart. Yeah.
Or even a grape juice. I mean, grapes are pretty tart,
What? Wait, have you ever thought about putting grapes in a beer like this?
I never have, no, but I'm thinking of it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I gave it a 14 out of 20 for flavor. Really nice flavor, pretty balanced. I think I would like a little more tartness in it to balance all that heavy grape there. And it's a nice grape. It's really nice, but
crazy.
Mouthfeel wise, medium bodied. I feel like this should feel a little lighter. Like lambics to me, like they feel light bodied. They're usually super dry. This one finishes kind of semi-sweet, and it's not as dry as you would expect for a lambic, but because it's a fruit lambic, fruit can give more the impression of sweetness, even if it is very dry. But I suspect that there is some level of it feels like there's some level of gravity left in this. I probably could put it in a hydrometer right now and it'd go straight to zero. I don't know, but it feels like there's some more sugariness to the beer than there may really be. No warmth. It's not heavy. It's just, it should feel a little lighter on the palate. Medium low carbonation, just a little bit of puckering quality to it. So to me, and this one, the grape quality is very nice. It overpowers the base style a little much, and makes it more like a fairly tart juice than like screaming lambic with fruit. It's just the balance of the style against the fruit is could be done just a little bit better on this. I think I would lighten up the fruit on this one with that red grape, which is a really nice tasting Malbec juice. and it's a grape that I like too. And I'm not getting anything bad from the grape flavors at all. I'm just really talking about very fine points of balance here. And you could also use a maybe more tart, long-aged lambic here. Also being that, the beer's in the bottle for 2 years now, it probably did taste a lot different. And maybe with a fresher version of that, the Malbec, it would have expressed itself a bit more prickly and sharply when it was younger in the bottle, I would imagine, and kind of have more of that lambic like character. But I think maybe this one is starting to go, the fruit is slowly going away, but there's a lot of fruit in here. So it's there for a while, and it's just changing character. More Brett could bring out that edge too a little bit, but I think again, the Brett is kind of losing to the fruit. But again, this is fine points. It's a well-crafted, very enjoyable beer. Nonetheless, I would work on the head retention again and the clarity. The head's just falling flat too quickly, and it would look a little prettier. The color the color is nice. I don't know if the clarity has changed over time in the bottle being in there for 2 years. Again, it could perhaps be due to the fruit, a little bit of fruit matter in there, a little, pectic enzyme will take that out real quick. But I landed at a 37 on this one. It's up towards 40, but to me, it's not quite, the balance wasn't quite as nice as the first one to me. And I really love that first one. That is amazing, that the Sauvignon Blanc. I think Brian and I originally kind of flipped scores on these, and I twisted them to my way. I could be a little twisted towards his way on this too, because it is a really enjoyable beer as well. But
you're like the Joker, dude. You're twisted.
We're gonna leave JP as the tiebreaker. Like, which one is the better fruit lambic?
Shit, you don't want to do that. I don't need to. So I still have a little glass of the first one, the Sauvignon Blanc, and they drink like completely different beers, which is surprising to me. And I'd be interested to find out if it's the same amount of juice or whatever, but the Sauvignon Blanc grapes it's definitely more beer forward. The Malbec is, you were saying like you were trying to hit some sort of sangria beer like thing. And I think that's exactly what you did. To me, that means the intention was to drive it a little more grape heavy and to make it drink more like a wine than the other one. At least that's what I'm imagining. So I imagine there's more Malbec juice in here than the Sauvignon Blanc. It's good in its own right. I mean, it's it's a little tartar, but I think it's an expression of the grape. There's not a whole lot of beer expression or malt expression. The sourness, I mean, I don't know. Again, if I went to a bar and ordered this as a Malbec style or Malbec juice blended with a sour beer, I would be like, yeah, this is exactly what I asked for. So it's hard to sort of like say for me, well, I don't even know what I'm saying. Drinking again as it warms up, there's no head on it at all. I do get some beer. I do get a sour aspect of it, and I think the tartness of the Malbec sort of rides on the same wavelength as the tartness of the beer, and so I think those things can sort of be in not clash, but I think one can hide the other. They can sort of like float in between one another, so it's hard to differentiate between the barrier of the Malbec juice and the beer. I don't think that's a problem at all. I think this beer is great. This is better than some of the wine blends that I've had from other sour beer breweries. I think they're both great beers. They drink like different beers. I would never have guessed that they had the same base beer. I think that's cool. I think it's really neat. So I couldn't even tell you what I think is what I think is better. That being said, I think it's time to talk about the beer, talk about the base beer.
I'm going to go out on a limb, JP, and I'm going to guess. I'm putting in my guess now. There's the same quantity of Malbec grapes or juice that was used of Sauvignon Blanc grapes or juice.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you.
Well, Char would be right. There is the
Yeah.
same amount of juice.
Nariah.
because the
But
flavor of the
I'm not
Malbec
gonna
is so
say
much
you're
more
wrong,
intense.
JP,
Okay.
only because the Sauvignon Blanc got blended with a little bit more of the blend than the Malbec did. So the Malbec does, pop a little bit more.
So technically,
So same juice, same
I'm
amount of
right.
juice in both, but one got
Technically, we're
blended a little
both
more
right.
than the other.
well, technically
That's
I'm
the
still
way,
right
yeah.
because the Malbec has no beer blended back into it, so therefore the Sauv Blanc juice quantity overall percentage is lower. So
We're both right, or we're both wrong. Glass half full or half empty.
No, I'm right and you're wrong. Okay, so base beer. Let's go through that real fast, please.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the recipe.
So this was a extract, and
Extra.
I don't,
off, Nariah.
I
That's
don't, I don't
not a bad way
remember-
to go for a sour beer, really.
I don't remember exactly what I read that persuaded me to do that, because I do brew all grain, but I read something. I mean, it's just like this was a long time ago, and
Whoop, did you accidentally
because
mute?
it's mostly the aging and the yeast and the bacteria that is really going to drive it.
Yep.
So I went with that for whatever reason that I can't remember now.
Well, one thing I found when I was brewing extract for the first 6 months of my brewing career was that my beers always consistently finished higher on the final gravity. And I don't know, there was something just a little less fermentable about the extract, the liquid extract that I would get from the homebrew shop compared to when I would do a mash and mash at normal temperatures and let it ferment out. It would always go a little bit lower. So I feel like maybe the extract gives the bugs a little something extra to chew on, and that could be a fun thing to try. Do the same beer with extract and with all grain mashed at a normal temperature and just see what happens.
right. So do you want to know everything that was in that extract, or?
Yeah.
But were there
But
specialty grains too?
Yeah, as much as you
Yes. So I did 0.6 of a pound of carapils, 0.6 of a pound of biscuit, and 0.3 of two row.
Biscuit. That's interesting.
got. Why biscuit?
I don't have any notes that describe that. It was so long ago, but
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm just
I kinda
curious.
wanna added a little biscuity note to it, and I thought that would be
Yep.
good for.
It sounds like it's something like someone who's learning at a homebrew, like, yeah, that sounds great, and then you sort of like learn that maybe you don't need to do that, or you learn a way around it, and you sort of like forget that ever happened to you. You're like, wow, that was weird.
Well, in a beer where the sourness just twists any remnant of the original character of the specialty malts that were in there, I mean, have you ever tasted a sour stout? Does it taste anything like a Guinness? No.
No.
Yeah.
So just it's there, yeah, but it got covered up and aged out and twisted and turned, and the yeast did its thing and the bugs did their thing, and there you go. It's a different animal now.
It would be a different beer without it.
Right, and like I was saying, this is only my at the time, this was only the second sour I'd ever done, so still in a very much like experimental phase. Like, oh, let's see how this works. Let's see how that works.
That's sort of what I was mean. Yeah, where you're like, oh, we're just trying everything at this point.
Yeah.
So,
So this got a lot of different stuff.
Talk about the original beer then, and why you blended it with the second beer. What did the original beer taste like, and what made you want to blend it?
So I went through a little bit of a weird phase with this beer where so for what I did was I followed the Michael Tonsmeyer method, and I put the bugs and the brewer's yeast in at the same time, and I let that sit in primary for about 2 weeks, and then I racked it off and let it age. Well, I kept checking it every 3 months or so, and it was not getting sour, and it was getting funky, but it wasn't getting sour. And I was like, well, maybe I did something wrong here. Maybe I added too many IBUs. I don't know. I don't really understand what's going on. And I used for brewer's yeast, I used a Safel BE 134, so a Saison yeast. And for the bacteria, I use White Labs 655, the Belgian sour mix. And so after how long was it? About a year, I believe. I was like, this isn't going anywhere. And I forgot to mention that I put both grape juices in to primary with it as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was like, I don't really see anything against this. Might as well just throw it all in at once.
Was the Crabtree effect is the only reason why not to, because the yeast might preferentially ferment the fruit juice and then not want to ferment the maltose, but that Saison yeast is a fucking monster and that'll ferment everything, Crabtree or not, pretty much.
Right. And so I basically thought that Saison yeast can get, beers down pretty low, and so can wine yeast. Maybe it'll work the same for both of them.
Yeah.
It seemed to work pretty well. So after roughly about a year, and I had tried the beer maybe 3 times, I was like, it's not getting sour. I don't know what I did, but I'm going to try something to maybe, kickstart it a little bit. So I bought some more of that Belgian sour mix, and I created a starter, trying to just, build up those bugs. And I actually threw a ton of fruit into this, which at this point, you can't taste all the fruit that's in it. And that's why I didn't really claim it. But I needed, some food for those bugs to chew to kind of, give it what I wanted, basically. So I have a list. You're going to lose me visually for a second because it's on my phone, but I have a list of all the fruit purees that I added. So for the white, I added blood orange, strawberry, apricot, mango, and grapefruit.
Wow.
And for the red,
grapefruit. Okay, because I've got like a big grapefruit, not big, but like a grapefruit pithy kind of thing.
Yeah, you were talking pith earlier before he said that.
Taking the pith.
Yeah, and I was going for a sangria like sour. So I was like, let's just throw a bunch of fruit in it. Yeah. I need food for the bugs to chew on. So let's just go heavy on it. And for the red, I did blood orange, cherry, blackberry, boysenberry, and raspberry.
Wow.
I got the blackberry.
Which and a lot of those are sort of like Malbec, flavor identifiers anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is good. And I think that's smart. I mean, especially if you want to accentuate those, that could be good too. I mean, if you really want to drive the Malbec point home, why not throw in some fruits that sort of identify as that.
But the blood orange is the interesting twist in both of these. I'm not like getting an obvious blood orange taste in either one.
No, I mean you bring
never really did either.
Yeah, I could be convinced of it in the first one because it is sort of like tart and pointy. You know what I mean? But like what you expect out of a young sour beer. That's the other part of it, where like that sort of aggressive bitterness is more like the sour beer part rather than like a bitterness or an off flavor or something like that. It just, to me, it just naturally integrated with the idea of the beer.
So when you fed those bugs, then they became happy and merrily started souring this beer over the course of another year or something. Yes.
You would think, but no.
Damn, the story continues.
And so, and I'm over here like, what am I doing something wrong? Like, what's happening? Like, it's funky. It's just not sour. So, after trying it a few times, it's starting to get, close to 2 years old. And I was like, yeah, I need to start thinking of other ways to get this to where I need to go. And so that's when I brewed another blonde ale, all grain this time, and soured that one for the blend. So, and the recipe for that one is, give me 1 second. It is 12 pounds of 2-row, 1.5 pounds of white wheat, and 3/4 pound of flaked oats.
Yeah, that seems like
And
more like a sour beer recipe.
I think the wheat and oats are helping you here and giving you
Yeah.
something for the Brett, especially to chew on and continue to funk it up. There's a lot of funk in both of these, and patience is
Mhm.
rewarding with that regard. So
yeah, well, what I did with this one is because I really wanted to, to nail it this time. I don't want to have to wait, even longer and find out that it's not where I want it. And since then, because that's almost a 2-year span, I had brewed other sour beers, and what I had picked up, from my experiments is that what I was doing at the time, and I still do it. So I have a brew bucket, a 7-gallon brew bucket, and I slapped a reptile heater on it and some insulating foil, and so that's kind of my kettle souring bucket. Well, I saw no need to put it back in the kettle and boil off the lacto. There's no point in that. So actually what I did was I pitched the lacto and I pitched Quebec at the same time. And I figured that the Quebec would get started pretty quickly and push out all the oxygen. So it would be a great environment for the lacto, and they both work at the same temperature. So I figured I could, 2 birds with 1 stone. So
That's a really fascinating idea. So I'm not always a big fan of Quebec, but for this purpose, I think your reasoning is 100% spot on.
Agreed.
yeah, I've done it several times since, and I love the way it turns out.
I've
It
never
saves
heard
me,
of
a
anyone
little bit
doing
of
that,
time.
and I've never heard of anyone doing that, and I'm shocked I haven't. And I think you've hit on something really, really good here.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much the Quebec really did in that environment, that super acidic, already fermented out, that's a yeast that wants to eat sugar, and there's not a whole lot of sugar there, right? I mean, it's
No,
the
this is the blend. So
Oh,
oh,
this
this is
is
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
the blend. I'm sorry. Okay, so this was in the blend, and okay, got it. So
Well,
half
and
half
so
Quebec. Got
unfermented
it.
wort. I just threw the lacto and the Quebec at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Um,
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Well, and the one time I used Quebec, like the longer that beer aged out, 3 or 4 months, it got a little tang, like a tartness to it, and it wasn't like a contamination. I think it's just the yeast. So I think
Yeah,
that
that's just
also-
what it is.
Yeah, I think that also plays a really big part in rounding out these other flavors too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool. That's great.
So yeah, so from there, I was actually worried about it having too much sugar left over, so I let that sit. I threw some Brett Brooks on that for about 4 months, and I threw some oak cubes in. Oak cubes completely got lost. I never really tasted the oak at all, but it was worth a shot. But yeah, I let it sit on Brett until it got down to a good stable gravity, and then I did a little blending session and blended them directly into the keg, each keg, where I topped it off with a little bit of priming sugar and a little bit more Brett before I bottled it.
I like the Brett Brooks. That's a good one to use for sure. For
Totally
long,
agree.
long aged sours.
Yeah.
It's just
I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break, everybody, and then we'll come back. We'll want to learn a little bit about the blending, and then we'll let you go, Nariah, because it's it's already 4 days ahead for you. I don't know. Hold on, everyone. It's Dr. Homebrew. We'll be right back. All right. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. We're wrapping it up here with Nariah and the boys about blending, because it's only been like a minute since you've heard this last conversation. So, so Nariah, you have your sour beer, you have your blend ready. How are you figuring out what goes where?
The teaspoon method. I took a sample of each, all three, and I did teaspoon here, teaspoon there, until I got the ratio that I thought was best.
Yeah, we were talking about that on the break. That's a good way to go, and not to waste a lot of beer. And like, whoops, I blended it wrong. Just go slow and methodical.
All right. That seems easy enough. It seems too simple.
Yeah, it's kind of just you do the ratios until you find something you like, and then
Yeah.
try to apply that to how many gallons you have, and hope for the best.
Do you remember approximately how much of the younger, more sour beer was blended with the older one to get the right mix in each of these?
I wish I had wrote it down, and I didn't. But I could
well,
tell you I had a 5.5 gallon batch for the blend, and these each were almost, they were like 6.5 gallons, maybe a little over, and I didn't quite use all of the original sour for that. So
okay. Well, you're never going to be able to replicate this beer.
Right.
Exactly the same.
I mean,
You might, exactly the same way. I mean, you might be able to get close, but I feel like
right.
there were some stop gaps where you're like, I gotta feed it with all these, whatevers. And are you a competition guy? Are you going to enter competitions? Have you?
So
done
I've only ever entered 2 competitions.
Okay.
I figured that if I like the beer, then I just drink it, and it's not really, I wasn't really into competitions for a while. I've been homebrewing for about 7.5 years, and just past few years I started entering competitions last year, actually. So I've only entered 2, but the last one I entered these both in it, and
oh, we lost you, Nariah.
Uh-oh.
In my mind, there's so much wine in this, and there's 1.5 gallons
Wait, hang
each
on.
of wine in a 5-gallon batch. So
Let me-
gallon
let me
and a half of wine, juice, and 5 gallons of beer.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's a lot of wine. And so I thought there were 2 wine like that, maybe the experimental category would be fitting for this. And both judges were, same judges for both of them, told me that it was miscategorized and that I should have put it in the lambic category. And so
here we are.
That led me to here. I figured I'd
Here we
get,
are,
big fan of your show, wanted to get on it, and figured, I get your opinions and see what you think.
Oh,
So
well,
have you ever?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Have you ever done a blend of the blends? Because that's what I just did. I put half and half of each of
I
those.
got to do it now too.
Dude, you blend
I actually
everything.
never have.
everything.
Okay. Because so it gives the Malbec kind of wins, of course, but it gives the Malbec a little more sour and makes it. I would go a little higher on the Malbec version with this, but
I did 2/3 to 1/3, and the Malbec still kind of like permeates, but it does sort of like lift everything up. The Sav sort of disappears.
yeah.
And it's Malbec forward, but it's pretty good.
But the sourness comes up, and you taste more of the funk.
Well,
So
it's like,
fun.
and it's like grapefruit bitterness that kind of comes in and cleans up after the Malbec too. So it's like tart, and then you got the fruit.
And now you can taste
Weird.
the blood orange too.
A little bit, yeah. Nariah, do you have any questions for anybody? I feel like you taught us more than we're gonna teach you, but I feel like
Right.
let's open it up. Let's see what happens.
I mean, no, not really. I mean, if you think that this is good for the fruit lambic category, and you guys really seem to like it, so I'm pretty satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine like what else you could really do.
I was just gonna go American Wild Ale, but I mean, once they said lambic, I started thinking like, oh, maybe it would fit better.
Yeah, I wouldn't go
yeah.
American Wild Ale. Yeah,
The Sauvignon Blanc version definitely works as the lambic. The Malbec, I could go either way. You could enter that as a specialty. Well, you entered it as a specialty, that didn't work, but as a wild ale, it could work. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to categorize, but sometimes those beers are the most fun. And
do one of each.
We could send a note to Gordon Strong and let him know like he needs to invent a new category for your beer. And
he talked about
Hybrid.
that. There's that link on the BJCP site for suggested new styles. So there you go.
Yeah, he'd look at it and go, I don't know, man, make something else. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, no, I think it's good. I personally, and obviously I am not nearly as reputable of a judge as these guys are, but I think it's fine for what it is. I think it's the category 23F, and if you look at those categories, it'll even say wine grapes as an example of fruit to add. So yeah, I don't see a problem with that at all.
It is, yeah.
So, I mean, for me, it's not like spontaneously fermented or anything. And I wasn't sure if that's something that, I have to claim, being in the Lambic category.
No.
Okay. That's really what was holding me back on that. But okay.
It's most styles aren't about how you make them. It's how they taste. In fact, I don't think there's any styles in the BJCP guidelines that are limited by how you make them. They're based on how the beer is perceived by the drinker. So it's, for our purposes, for Dr. Homebrew, we want to know exactly how you made it. We want to, especially something as cool as this, we want to know all about your process and the proportions and this and that. No one's ever going to know that in competition.
Right. And I think the sour mix is meant to approximate what a wild fermentation, a spontaneous fermentation would do.
Right.
And give you the flora and fauna that you would get from that. I've had the same experience too, where you let it go and the sour mix doesn't do anything. And I like that. What I really like about this whole story is the tenacity of you as a brewer that went in, took a beer that wasn't seeming to go anywhere and turned it into something fantastic in the end. So kudos to you, man.
Yeah. And you could have added just sugar or whatever, but you added, fruit that sort of, and I don't know if you did this on purpose, but that sort of applied to the flavors of the juice that you were at.
You could have dumped that whole beer.
Smart.
You could have dumped it. That would have been a mistake, but you could have just given up and dumped it. But
I didn't think it was a bad beer, so I didn't think it was dump worthy. I thought it was, there was a lot to save there, so I just kept at it.
Yeah,
Keep
for sure.
Going. Yeah.
All right. Well, if that's it, I think we're done for the evening.
It's very late where you are, and thanks for being a good sport with us and hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Really appreciate you sending us this awesome beer.
Yeah. All right, now if you can take off, or I'll be another minute, and then I'm going to wrap up the show. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do.
Okay. Well, thanks again, guys.
Thanks, brother.
Cheers. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, man.
So we need beer, right, JP?
We need beer. Go, email Brian. Spin up your Microsoft Outlook or Yahoo or whatever the fuck your
AOL online.
Yeah, your
Hotmail. Hotmail.com.
Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com. And we want anything you fermented. Just anything. I don't care what it is.
You sounded very Midwestern there.
Yeah. We need beers. We need beers. We need wines. We need beverages. We need things to judge.
We'll take a damn hard seltzer if you send it.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
Will we?
Yes, we will. And look, if we don't do anything in a couple months, we're gonna be
wrap up the show and fold it all up and cancel.
It'll be a fashion show, and we'll every show we'll have Brian Sharp. We'll go through 5 outfits of his wardrobe, and we'll judge him. You don't
5-star chemicals, 5 stars, 5 outfits.
That's right. That's what you got to do. It's gematria. We're 5
fashion SWAT. Yep.
So yes, do that, and then Sharp, remind me for the next time. We don't have time tonight. Someone in the chat, Hayden, I think wanted to get your definition of retention, head retention. You brought it up, I guess, on a Weizenbach review, and Hayden wanted to hear it again. And we've already been trucking for almost an hour and a half now. So remind me for the next time.
We will discuss head retention next month on one of the shows next time.
Yes. So sorry, Hayden. You got to stay tuned. That's how we get you.
Hayden, send in a beer or two, Hayden. Come on. We need beer, please.
Yeah,
please.
Hayden, first of all,
we're not desperate, but we need beer. So send us a beer.
We're going to make a new rule where you can't ask a question until you send in 4 beers. No. All right, we're going to take off. Thank you very much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. That's all I got for you. Email brian@thebrewingnetwork.com because we need beers. Thank you very much. Have a good month. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.